Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Learning to Code for Kids. In today's episode, we're going to be learning about classes and constructors. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so a class is an object, or it's a description of an object. An object could be a player, could be an enemy. The one we're going to do today is our first object will be a weapon, which our player and the enemy will hold. So we're going to create multiple weapons eventually. But I'll just show you how to do that. So first things first is you go over to the Solution Explorer and then find where it says My First Program or My First Game. Right click on that and you'll see there'll be a little C hash with a box around it. That means it's the project. Right click on that, go down to Add, and then select Class. Okay, make sure it's on Class right here. Then come down here and you want to type in weapon, W, capital W, EAPON .CS. Then hit Add. And as you'll notice two things. One over the side, we now have a new class here called weapon.cs, and it's also up here on the tab. So if you want to go back to where we were before, you would just go back to program.cs and you'd be back to where we were coding last week. So let's go back to weapon. Okay, first things first is it's set as internal, this class. We want to make it public. And what public means is anybody can access this class. So we change it from internal to public. Then inside the curly brackets, let's add some spaces. Now we want to add some variables that are going to describe our weapon to us. So the first one is going to be public string. And if you remember from episode 2, a string is a name or a word or a sentence. In this one, it's going to be the name. So let's just do space. Now, because it's a member variable, and what a member variable is, means that it's part of the whole class. You put an underscore. So you do shift, and it's the key next to 0. Okay? Then we want to type name. And then do semicolon. Okay? So that is going to be our first variable. Now, the second variable, same thing, do public. We are going to give our weapon a minimum damage and a maximum damage. And it's going to be a number. So if you remember from episode 2, an int is a number. So we're going to do int. And then we're going to do shift, the key next to 0, which is an underscore. And then we're going to call it min, all one word, min damage. Make the D capital, just like I did. And then after that, we're going to do public. Oh, look, it already knows. Just hit tab if it already comes up. Otherwise, just type it in. Okay, so now we have our object class, which has the name of the weapon, the minimum damage of the weapon, and the maximum damage of the weapon. Now we have to set those values when we create this object. And the way we do that is we create something called a constructor. Okay, so below our variables, just hit enter twice, leave a space. And then you want to write public, then the name of the class. Whoop. Then the name of the class, which here it's weapon. And then you want to do open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then curly bracket, curly bracket. Now, in this constructor, we're going to have something called parameters. And they're going to go inside the parentheses. So I'm going to have a string, and then you do space, then you do name, and then you're going to do int min damage. And comma, you can guess the last one, int max damage. Okay, now inside the curly brackets, so when we create this object, we're gonna have to pass in these values, and these values are gonna be set to our member variables. So in here, between the curly brackets, do underscore name equals name. Then min damage, same thing, max damage. Now I'll just clean this up a little. Alright, and that's our first class. Okay, so I'll just go over what we did. We created a class called weapon. We made it public so everybody can see it. We created 3 public member variables so people can access these variables. We named one as a string, which is a name, and then another 2 that are ints, the minimum damage and the maximum damage that this weapon can do. And then we created a constructor to set our member variable values when we create our object. So now let's go back over to program.cs. And this is what you do. So under the while loop, right here, just go weapon. And we're going to make this weapon an axe. So we're going to call the variable axe equals. Now, when you want to create an object, you use the word new. And then you do weapon. Then open, close, parentheses, and a semicolon at the end. All right, now it's complaining. And the reason it's complaining is because it's saying, hey, you have a constructor which says you need to pass a name, a minimum damage, and a maximum damage. So let's pass a string, and that is what we wrap it in quotations. And then do a comma, and then the minimum damage, which will be 5, and then the maximum damage, which will be 15. And that's it. We've created a weapon, and we named it axe, and we gave it a minimum damage 5 and a maximum damage of 15, and the variable name or the object name is axe.